And we made it to Friday and the final day of February. You know who I am. And look at this guy, Eliasen.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
And happy it's Friday.
And it's the end of February, and I don't know about you, but like I'm not going to be sad to see it go.
Nope.
No.
Not at all.
Catch you later. We're on to March. And an interesting start to March this weekend, which we'll get to in a minute. But let's take a quick look back at the month that was February. It just felt like for a while there, every couple days, something was happening. Storms and wind.
When I think about February, I don't know how positive my thoughts are on February. We had a lot of cold. We had, not a ton of snow.
Right.
But, we had these quick bursts sort of back to back to back. And then let's not forget, we had the ice as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we ended up with 14.2 inches of snow in the month of February, which is just below the average, but it was way more than we've had the last couple of years. So we're kind of like back to doing the regular February thing here in Boston. Pretty typical February. It was colder than normal, but yeah, snowfall-wise, we still haven't got the big one here. It's still been quite a while, several years since we had like a really big snowstorm.
We're holding out for a hero.
Is it? Yeah, absolutely. But the month was running way below average until this week, and suddenly we just kind of had the last several days have been very much above average. So we're going to finish right now we're officially like minus 1.4 per day. You filter today and it may be, it'll change slightly, but we're definitely going to finish below average temperature-wise this month.
Yes. Oh my goodness, last week.
Yeah, and so that basically secures the victory for us here. All 3 months this winter will have been below average, which...
so you say New England is doing New England things. 3 consecutive below average months. Wow, and February looking like it's taking first place.
Yeah, and for the first time in more than 10 years, we had 3 winter months below average. So like it's really been a while since, we've had, again, the last couple of winters were like non-winters. Yeah. But we've kind of fits and starts to winter, but this is like, it was a persistent cold really up until the last couple of days, all winter long.
I really think the question is now, are we about to really unleash the threat of winter in the final weeks?
It's certainly not.
It's New England.
Right. So meteorological winter, we should probably say, so meteorological winter is December, January, February. So today is the end of that, meteorological winter. Doesn't mean that winter itself is technically over. March can be, I don't have any good words. March can be rough.
We were talking about that during the commercial break earlier this morning on the show, and just how crazy March can get.
Yeah.
And then you add on top of that April too, when most of the country is trying to switch over from winter to the spring.
Right. And it's still cold here.
It can get very chatty in the weather department.
Right. So the winter as a whole, meteorological winter, the average temperature was below 32 degrees below freezing. And that's the coldest, again, in 10 years. So all these stats basically say, yep, it was a pretty darn cold winter. Now, do you remember way back in November? I'm sure you do. Our little Jeopardy game. We forecasted what the winter would be like. Yeah. You were the
and I promised you lower heating bills, but
how did that go?
There's a debate going on now, and some people are going to be changing some rates.
Yeah. So at any rate, we thought we'd take a quick look back and kind of give ourselves a report card on how our forecast went, and Eric Fisher did that. So let's check that out.
Each November, the WBZ Next Weather Team gives its outlook for how the upcoming winter season might feel, and some years are easier than others. Now, last winter was straightforward. Strong El Nino dominated. The forecast for a mild, relatively snowless winter, that was a direct hit. This winter, the atmospheric signals were a little more mixed. We knew there'd be a La Nina. We knew that years with very dry falls and very warm Novembers had never led to a snowier than average winter in Boston. So how did it pan out? It's time for our report card. Now, we called for less than 30 inches of snow in Boston. As of right now, that gets a passing grade. Boston is just below that number. Despite the chill this winter, the city still hasn't received a snowfall of 6 inches or greater in more than 3 years. Central Massachusetts is even farther below average. Next, we forecasted that the majority of the snow and cold would come after MLK Day, and that worked out pretty well. About 75% of the snow occurred on or after MLK weekend, and our coldest temperatures compared to averages have indeed come in the tail end of winter. Lastly, we forecast a milder than average season overall. That one gets a big F. It was the first colder than average one in a decade. There were no records, but the cold was nothing if not persistent. We went 55 days before we hit 50 degrees just a few days ago. And although we didn't get a lot of snow, it was a much better season for ice. So after a couple of dud winters, I think the last few months proved that a good old-fashioned winter is still possible here in New England.
Okay, so overall, we had some hits and misses.
Yeah, I think we could pass. We could proceed a little bit further. With one caveat, though, obviously we've had a lot of cold and, promising a milder winter so far.
I will say that forecasting a below average season any time of year now is it's really tough. I mean, we have so few below average months now, just given the warming climate, that in order for us to forecast a winter below average, the signals would have had to have been off the charts, and they just weren't. Yeah. So again, some hits, some misses, but let's move on. And of course, this is the first March, starts tomorrow. And if this is any indication of how March is going to go.
A tale of two seasons.
Right? Imagine if this is how March goes. We're jumping on the roller coaster and we're going up Saturday and down on Sunday.
I always like to sort of inform people that, hey, we're experiencing it too. If you're experiencing temperatures swinging from one end of the spectrum to the others and you're suffering from it health-wise, or even if you're just frustrated because of the infrastructure and ice one day and 50s the next day, we're experiencing it as well. And we will have sort of this instance happening. Earlier this morning, we were, I rolled out the 7-day forecast, and I was telling everyone this morning, Terry, prepare yourselves for a range of temperatures over the next 7, 20s, 30s, 40s, and, even teens, what feels like temperatures in the single digits. And even by Wednesday and Thursday, we're back in the 50s.
Yeah, it's going to be a classic March, I guess, up and down. I guess the good, everybody knows March is when we start, the average highs by the end of the month are 50 degrees. My biggest, the only reason why I like March really is the gain in daylight. Like March 9th is when we turn the clocks ahead. Sunsets will get close to 7 p.m. by the end of the month. Like, to me, that's like, okay, here we go. Like, that's spring to me.
That is an indication that we're almost there.
We are.
Almost there.
Yeah, but look at those snow averages, though. So now, again, this is an average over the last 150 years. Now, in recent times, we haven't actually had as much snow in March, but it can happen.
It can happen.
It can happen. But again, this is my favorite part.
It only takes one.
That's right.
It only takes one.
Yeah. This is my favorite part, though. So a week from Sunday, we turn the clocks ahead, and look at that. By March 23rd, 7 p.m. sunsets. You get home from work, you still have some time to sit out on the deck, assuming it's warm enough. Go for a walk, you know what I mean? You're not driving home in the dark.
I might call out March 24th.
Okay, I'll write that down. Take a note of that.
And it's recorded, too.
You're on tape. But just to show you that the average March snow, again, is 9 inches in Boston. We haven't had really any snow to speak of in March since 2019. But when it snows here in March, it snows.
That's really shocking, though.
Right?
I feel like that's giving sort of a little bit of a presence that something in the atmosphere is happening. There's some noticeable changeover to not receive more than pretty much 2 inches in March in Boston for the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a relative snow drought, but again, you cannot rule it out. We cannot sit here on the last day of February and say we're all done. I would never. We're in New England, can't do it. And as a matter of fact, so if you were to say, like, is there anything, I just had a question from one of the producers, is there any snow like in the next week or so? And a few flurries tomorrow morning. Watch out for next weekend. That was what I said. I said, to me, we're going to get a rainstorm middle of this week, but something might be brewing next weekend. No guarantees, but that could be like the last big chance for a big snow, again, about 8 days from now. Just, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And pretty much, I always say we can keep it very simple. What goes up must come down.
Well,
usually after a mild push of air, some heavier rain, on the backside, there's going to be a cold push of air swinging on in.
That's right. Yeah, so this is the official next 8 to 14 day forecast. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of signal for much of anything here, kind of near normal. And the same thing, this is the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center's forecast for the month of March. And there's no big, obviously it looks warm in the south. But for New England and the Northeast, for the New England Northeast, there is no strong signal. It's like, oh my God, it's going to be it's going to be so warm or so cold. It's probably going to be up and down, which March, that's typically what March does. And the precipitation outlook, sort of the same kind of thing, maybe above average to our west, but no obvious signal here of any, huge swings one way or the other. I guess we'll just have to see how it goes.
Right. And obviously, too, this just takes into account the entire month. Obviously, you can have some isolated, heavier rainstorms that move through. We're not saying it's going to be all but zero, but, in the grand scheme of things, when you're looking at the even big picture, I think we're likely going to have slightly below average chances.
It would be remiss if we didn't mention this before we left today. There is a pretty cool thing going on in the sky tonight, planetary alignment. Before you get too excited, I know you mentioned this morning, there are going to be some clouds rolling in.
Yeah.
So,
womp, womp.
yeah, I think most folks may be clouded over by the time, this is really best seen just after sunset, which, between 5:30 and 6 p.m. Just in case, if you live in an area that for some reason didn't get clouded over, definitely got to step out tonight and check it out.
I would probably say south and east of the city may pretty much be. And even if you're north, into perhaps even the Merrimack Valley, you may be okay through about, let's say, 7:30 at the latest.
Yeah, agreed. But just so you know, you can't see all these with the naked eye. Neptune and Uranus are a little too far away, so you'll need a telescope for those. But the rest of them, if you know where to look, and this is kind of a general idea, you have where to look in the sky about a half hour after sunset. You had a great app you were using earlier.
I was going to say, I'm a nerd when it comes to apps and weird things, Flight Radar, Star Chart. I'm not advertising for them. I'm just telling you these are apps that I use on my personal phone. Star Chart is a great app.
Yeah.
Even if you download Star Chart and you aim it up to the sky, look in the eastern sky right now, you'll be able to see some of the planets there. But looking west later on this evening, you'll obviously be able to see Venus, Mercury, the moon. You'll also be able to see that, and also some of the other phenomena up in space.
It's really helpful just to put your phone up, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, as opposed to just like going out and like, okay, all right, Terry and Jason said look east. Now, is that Mars? Well, if you get the app, you just hold it up and
it'll show you.
Much easier way to do it. So next 7, as you said, some ups and downs.
Some ups and downs, some bumps in the road there. Monday morning, guys, is it's going to be a really cold one. We usually get into the station around 4 a.m. So it's definitely going to be a very cold start to us on Monday with some slight improvement by Tuesday. There's a nice push of milder air by midweek on Wednesday, but again, that means something, okay? We're warming things up, certainly well above norm. Our average daytime high today, Terry, I believe is 41 degrees. So look at this, 55 degrees next Thursday for, what is this, March 5th? That's not normal.
And like you said, when what goes up must come down. We'll look out for that following weekend. Again, not any official prediction, but there could be something brewing. We should say, remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, click like and subscribe. We love getting more and more viewers, and we do this at least a couple times a week, if not more. So
and we love to hear from you guys, too.
We sure do.
And how about this? Become a weather watcher too.
Yes, go to cbsboston.com. Be one of our weather watchers. We have several hundred, and they're like really a huge part of our team. So we appreciate it.